Joining me now is former Chief of Staff for Senator Mike Lee, Boyd Matheson. Boyd, great to have you back.
Hey, thanks, Liz. Great to be here.
During the State of the Union, 74 applause breaks in a 59-minute speech. 74 breaks for applause.
Way too many applause lines in there. I think they should banish those from the well of the House chamber because so often it's just on very petty and small things, and we really never get down to the substance of the issue.
No, I think Rand Paul actually said that if he were president, he would ban applause from the State of the Union, that there would be no clapping, no interruptions. Now, the boldest statement last night, I thought, came from the man who said nothing, from Paul Ryan, who practiced his poker face, he said, and sat behind the president. He invited the Little Sisters of the Poor as his guests. Now, those are the nuns, as you know, who have challenged Obamacare based off of the contraceptive mandate. What did you think of that?
I actually thought that was a great move by Speaker Ryan, and it shows one of the things I think is really important for us as conservatives, that we are actually the party of the poor and the needy, that Republican and conservative principles in particular have lifted more people out of poverty than any principles in the history of the world. And so I hope that by him inviting the Sisters of the Poor, that was a good first step to show the nation that we really are the party that believes you can work hard, do the right things, be an entrepreneur, and really accomplish great things. But it all starts with kind of a messaging and an attitude. And you don't do that just on a stage. You don't do that with a lot of applause lines. You do that with a lot of policy lines and a lot of very specific plans.
Right. I also thought it was a good example of the fact that Obama's rhetoric is empty so often, that he had 59 minutes to speak, and one of the most notable statements from the whole night came without any words at all, just the faces of those two nuns, the face of Speaker Ryan. The tone of Obama's speech last night was very reminiscent of his campaign days, I thought. Very hopey and changey. He said those words more than he's been saying them recently. And if you haven't been paying attention to politics, I think turning on the TV, listening to him last night, you could think, oh, he saved the economy with just this rhetoric. What do you think?
That's right. If there's one thing we've learned over the last 7 years, that hope is very important to the American people. We can hope for a good economy. We can hope that oil prices will stay down. We can hope that jobs will come back. We can hope. But here's the important thing. Hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a plan. And that's what the Republicans and what the conservatives in particular bring to the table. That yes, we have hope, but we also have a strategy that matches that hope. And that's actually what gives us hope, because we have principles that will drive policy. And in the end, that actually is good politics as well.
Right, and I thought it was a little contradictory as well that Obama, at the beginning of his presidency, claimed to want to transform, to fundamentally transform America. Then he came out last night after 7 years of opportunity to do that, and in some ways I think he did, but he came out and set low expectations for this year. Was he trying to compensate for not following through? Was he trying to just set low expectations so that people weren't worried about what he did last night? What was his strategy?
I'm not sure what the strategy was on the very low expectation, because I think everyone was kind of scratching their heads a little bit and say, okay, that's a gimme, that's a gimme. So there really wasn't a lot of substance there, and there was always the lofty rhetoric which you get from the president. But again, there was no real substance to back it up. But I think that also made it harder for his critics to have anything to shoot at, because there just really was it was a nothing burger in the end.
Right, I found plenty to pick at, though. I think I can count myself as one of his critics. One of the things I noticed, and I think this speaks to what you were talking about before, how conservatives have constructive plans to address some of the issues, specifically with the economy, is when Obama was talking about innovation being part of our DNA as Americans, he named a list of innovators. They were all individuals. Every single one was an individual person. Nowhere did he mention a government agency or any branch of the government as achieving any of those great things. He only said something about people. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells you exactly what the American people need to know. And that is that America is always at its best when we are the people of big ideas, when we do innovate. And we don't do it based on a government grant or a government subsidy or the government not leveling the playing field, stacking the deck and picking the winners and losers. We're at our best when we do dream big. And again, I think that's a great model and a great message, especially rolling into 2016. My hope is that as conservatives, we're going to really take this as a message to the people. 2016 should be a dialogue with the American people that, yeah, we can unleash American innovation, and we do that by getting rid of the big regulatory state. We trim down the tax structure that's burdening so many, the overregulation that's killing our entrepreneurs and our small business owners. And we unleash it. But we do that with a strategy and a plan and not just a lot of hope and change.
What about the curing cancer line? That's certainly dreaming big. And I think obviously that's something that everyone of all parties agrees on. Is that something the government should be focusing on?
You know, I am a firm believer that we are always at our best when the private sector gets going. And as you pointed out, Liz, most of the great innovations in history didn't come from a bureaucrat's cubicle. They came from an innovator in a garage, in their backyard, in their basement at home, dreaming big, going big, and making positive things happen.
No, at the beginning of his speech, Obama mentioned 4 questions he thinks that America needs to answer. And they were 4 pretty hefty, pretty weighty questions. They weren't bad, except for question number 3. And that was the one about how to leverage technology to solve the urgent challenge of climate change. He made a statement which I think is just blatantly false. He claimed that the majority of scientists believe that climate change, as said by the liberal agenda, is real. And he just said that as if it were fact. How do you respond to that?
You know, there's so many things out there, and there's so many different ways to slice and dice what's happening with our globe. I think that the important thing for us is, yes, we need to be careful stewards of the environment. And I think everybody agrees with that. But government mandating it is not the answer. It's never been the answer, and it's certainly not the answer now.
No, and something else that I noticed when I was watching, there were 5 Supreme Court justices that were in attendance. Only 5. One of them was John Roberts. What does that say?
Maybe he was there just to make sure that Obamacare made it all the way to the end, to the last, presidential address in the State of the Union.
Yeah, I think so too. I was like, well, if that isn't telling, I don't know what is. We are out of time. Boyd, I appreciate you coming on the program. Thanks for being here today.